Hello, everyone. Great to be here. As Peter said, joining you from Singapore. I'm just going to invite Shebnam to bring up my slides. Thank you very much indeed, Shebnam. Thank you. So today I'm going to just talk very briefly about, as Peter mentioned, of the negative impact that they have on others. And in the spirit of standing on the shoulders of giants, I have to say that I too am learning about this and will be very, very happy to hear your reactions to it. It's very much in the spirit of hope as well, and in terms of those alternative approaches. And so this approach of motivational interviewing is intended as almost like an augmentation to perhaps traditional methods of coaching. So if we go to the next slide, I recently wrote a book called Toxic Humans, which looks at the darker side of organizational life. And I was very struck by the work of Dr. Tasha Eurich, who talks a lot about self-awareness. And if you'll allow me, I just wanted to mention these three categories of people: the lost causes, people who have no self-knowledge and no motivation to acquire it. They go through their life blissfully ignorant of the impact that they're having on others, and they have no interest in finding out about it. We then have a group of people called the aware don't care group. And these are people who are actually very, very aware of the fact that they intimidate, that they bully, and that they coerce other people. But for them, they feel that it gets them what they actually need. So they have no motivation to change. And then we have the third group of people. These are what we call the nudgeables. And the nudgeables, if you like, are people who are aware that there's something not quite right in their team. People that don't stay very long, they request a transfer. And so these are people who begin to see that there is something they need to do about the way that they are managing, but they don't really know how to make a start. And that's where an approach that combines really good feedback with compassion can be very successful. And let me just show you what I mean in the next few minutes. So if you go to the next slide, motivational interviewing has these 6 main principles. It's founded on a clinical tradition of trying to help people with addictions, so substance abuse addictions and so forth. And I wondered whether we could apply some of these principles to people who find it difficult to address some of their toxic behaviors, almost like an addiction. So let's go to the next slide as we break these 6 principles down. The first is indeed expressing empathy. So trying to see the other person's point of view. Secondly, to the next slide, it's very important to work with the person to develop discrepancy. In other words, this is where we talk to people about what life could be like if they were to change their behavior. And we might do that by asking questions like, what's so good about this behavior that you're conducting right now? In other words, we're inviting the person to be the architect of their own behavior change. So if you go to the next slide, some key things with motivational interviewing is that we should avoid argument, because if we find that we're coming into an argument with the person, the chances are that we're encountering some kind of resistance. And so the best thing to do is to do what is indicated in the next slide, if we go to the next slide, and that is to roll with resistance. So if you think that you're not making progress in the conversation with the person you're trying to help, you might want to say, I don't think I'm understanding very well what you're explaining here. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? In other words, invite more perspectives rather than simply trying to push them to say something that perhaps they're not ready to say. And the big thing is that people themselves are a valuable resource for finding solutions to problems. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that we need to support what we call self-efficacy. In other words, the idea that the ability to change is within the person themselves. And so our job, if we undertake this approach of motivational interviewing, is to sort of help people to discover that side of themselves that perhaps has been hidden for a long time. And that support needs to be done with compassion. So if you go to the next slide, my final point here about the principles of motivational interviewing are around assessing confidence. So some simple things that we can do with people to increase their motivation for changing is to ask people how confident they are on a scale of 1 to 10. So if somebody says, well, I think I'm really around a 3 at the moment, then our response should be, okay, so what could we do to move that to a 4 perhaps, or even a 5? If the person happens to answer 2, which means that they are in a very challenging position, rather than saying, you can do it, just work harder, you can do it, much better to try to turn it into a target that they can agree to and that they can work to. The idea, as you can see here, is to encourage confidence. And so that takes me to the next slide, which is, if you like, the final word on the differences and similarities between motivational interviewing and coaching. So just in summary, motivational interviewing, as you can see here, it's a therapeutic technique that was originally used to help people with mental health challenges and also addictions. I'm wondering if we can apply some of the principles of motivational interviewing to be able to push on further than we can possibly achieve with what I would call traditional coaching methodologies. And the reason why I'm interested in this is that motivational interviewing is very much founded on empathy, collaboration, and support. It's also founded on the notion that we should guide people to explore possibilities. So we in fact give the responsibility for change very much to the other person. Coaching is fantastic, and coaching has a place without any doubt in helping people to develop. But I think you might agree that motivational interviewing is perhaps more open-ended. It could take a long time to change some really entrenched behaviors, whereas coaching, particularly in the setting that we in HR know it, is usually quite time delimited. And it also has specific goals that are then tied, for example, to things like personal development plans. So those are just some of the ideas. And if we go to the next slide, I'd just like to say a very big thank you to everyone for listening, and to all of our friends in Turkey for inviting not just me, but my colleagues as well. So I'll stop there and hand back to Peter.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's great you're building on the idea of empathy for leaders, and the idea that somehow the motivational interviewing is something which helps people with addictions. And I think we have traditional leaders addicted to power and control.
Exactly.
And having to get rid of that is a bit like getting off a drug.
Exactly.
Many of them, of course, have the personal motivation to be in control, important, and so on. So we may even need a kind of if we can't change the mindset of some leaders, a new style of leader emerging over the next decade in order to continue to engage and empower the workforce, because they're not going to stand for the control, toxic leadership that might have been good 20, 30 years ago or 100 years ago, but not now. So we're looking forward to a future,
Indeed.
even if, as Sabine would say, we don't know yet what it's going to be like.
Mm.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael.